Okay, now moving on to the very important and the final step of fertilization, which is referred to as the fusion of pronuclei. The male and the female pronuclei, meaning the nucleus of the sperm and the nucleus of the ovum, fuse together by a process referred to as syngamy. When the male nucleus from the sperm and the female nucleus from the ovum start approaching each other, they are almost indistinguishable from each other, and very soon as they approach together, their membranes will disappear and their chromosomes will merge together and arrange themselves on an equatorial plate in order to undergo mitotic cell division. So now we can call this cell where both the chromosomes, that is chromosomes brought by the sperm and the chromosomes in the ovum nucleus, both of them have merged together. We call this cell as a zygote, which is a diploid of 46 chromosomes. So let us see how exactly this works in the next slide. We will in detail learn the process of syngamy. So let me show the secondary oocyte over here. You all know that the secondary oocyte has a plasma membrane, and I'm showing a dotted lining here, which is the zona pellucida, and then outer to the zona pellucida you have a layer made up of follicle cells, and these follicle cells, which are from the granulosa layer of the Graafian follicle. I hope you remember what this layer is called. This is called the corona radiata along with the matrix. See that the striations are the matrix which holds the cell together. So what is this cell called? This cell is called a secondary oocyte. Now this cell has a nucleus of its own. Now this nucleus of the secondary oocyte is, so let me label it as the nucleus Nu of the secondary oocyte. And remember, a secondary oocyte is haploid, so it has N is equal to 23. It has 23 chromosomes in it. Now if you all go back to your basics, you will remember that secondary oocyte is yet to undergo or yet to finish. What is it yet to finish? It is yet to finish meiosis 2. So bear this in your mind that the secondary oocyte is yet to finish meiosis 2. In the meantime, what happened now? A sperm has successfully penetrated into all these barriers. And what is the sperm letting in? Only what parts of the sperm will enter the cytoplasm of the secondary oocyte? Let us give a name to the cytoplasm of the secondary oocyte. We shall call it as the ooplasm. So what enters into the cytoplasm of the secondary oocyte is the sperm nucleus. So I'm putting dots inside to distinguish it from the nucleus of the secondary oocyte. So the sperm nucleus and the centriole. The sperm is the one that contributes centriole to the egg. The egg does not have its own centriole. So let us label this as the sperm nucleus. Now the sperm nucleus is also haploid. It also has how many chromosomes now? 23 chromosomes. And now what is this structure which is also entering into the ooplasm from the sperm? This is the centriole. So the sperm contributes both its centriole into the egg. Now let us see what happens in the meantime. While the sperm nucleus and the centriole are entering into the egg cytoplasm, this arrow is very important. From the sperm, they are entering into the ooplasm. This nucleus of the secondary oocyte, so this nucleus of the secondary oocyte is now stimulated, triggered to undergo meiosis 2. I told you that secondary oocyte is yet to undergo meiosis 2. So while this is happening, the secondary oocyte nucleus will enter meiosis, will complete its meiosis 2 to form a tiny daughter cell which is cut off outside the secondary oocyte. This tiny daughter cell which is cut off, and it will now give rise to a new nucleus. So let me make the new nucleus a little more rounded, and broken dotted lines to shade it like this. Okay, so this division which the nucleus of the secondary oocyte underwent is called meiosis 2. It forms a tiny daughter cell outside. We call this tiny daughter cell as the second polar body. It forms a second polar body, and this nucleus now we will no longer call it the nucleus of secondary oocyte because it has completed meiosis 2. So we should now call this as the nucleus of ovum. That means this larger cell, it is now no longer a secondary oocyte, it has become an ovum. How did a secondary oocyte become ovum? By completing its what? By completing its meiosis 2. So we have nucleus of ovum. Now I want all of you to focus on two things. One is the sperm nucleus which has already entered in, which has n is equal to 23, and then the nucleus of the ovum which also has n is equal to 23. See? So two things I want you to focus now. Nucleus of the sperm and nucleus of the ovum, which are both inside the cytoplasm of the, I told you this cell is now no longer called secondary oocyte. We call this cell as the ovum. Very, very important. We now call it as ovum. Okay. So now I will draw the ovum again for you here, a larger version of it. Okay, now this is the sperm nucleus. Let me put dots inside so that you distinguish it. And this is the ovum nucleus. Let me put broken lines, shade it with dotted or broken lines inside. Okay, so now you know along with, so let me label this as the sperm nucleus. It has n is equal to 23 chromosomes, and let me label this as the ovum nucleus. It also has n is equal to 23. So now they are far apart from each other. They start moving closer and closer to each other. Now as they start moving closer and closer to each other, we will call them as pronuclei. They start increasing in their size. They look almost similar as they start approaching each other. We will call them as the pronuclei. So this will be called the female pronucleus, and this will be called the male, because this came from the ovum and this came from the sperm. Now as they start approaching each other, gradually their nuclear membranes will disappear. See, both the nuclear membranes, see, one I'm showing it as a circle, a circular nucleus, one as a oval one to distinguish, to help you distinguish. The circular one is the ovum nucleus, the oval one is the sperm nucleus. Now they have come so close to each other, their nuclear membrane are disappearing, and whatever chromosomes they have inside them, I'm showing very tiny structures inside. These are the chromosomes. I cannot draw all the 23 chromosomes, so I will show only a few chromosomes for your understanding. So whatever chromosomes are contained in them, the chromosomes will merge together. So they will fuse. When they don't really fuse, actually they just merge. You can use the word merge because the contents will mix, you can say, because by the time they fuse, their nuclear membranes have disappeared, and what ultimately mixes is only the chromosomes. So this one has brought 23 chromosomes and this one has brought 23 chromosomes. So now we have with us total of 46 chromosomes. All the 46 chromosomes will align themselves in a straight line. That means now the cell is ready to undergo the first ever cell division, which is the cleavage. And now what do we call such a cell which has these 46 chromosomes aligned in a single line? We call such a cell which now has a double set of 46. So 2n is equal to 46. We call this now as a zygote. Not only do they align, very soon a spindle apparatus will also be formed. See, spindle fibers will also be formed. That means the cell is now ready to undergo the very first cell division, that is cleavage or mitosis of the embryo, of the zygote. Okay, so this cell where you have a total of 46 chromosomes, 23 brought by the egg nucleus, 23 brought by the sperm nucleus, and very quickly what happens to all the 46 chromosomes? Very quickly they align in a straight line, and a spindle apparatus is also established which pulls them together in a straight line, and this cell will now be referred to as zygote. And this process where both the nuclei came together and their chromosomes merged with one another is referred to as the syngamy or fusion of pronuclei. Actually, there is no fusion, because by the time I told you, by the time the egg nucleus or the nucleus of the ovum and the nucleus of the sperm come together, what disappears? What are these dotted lines? Let me show it for you here. What is disappearing here? The nuclear membrane. I'm writing it for you here. The nuclear membrane disappears or disintegrates. Alright, so ultimately what's left is the 23 chromosomes which merge to form 46, and now the cell will be referred to as a zygote because it is a diploid cell, it is a product of fertilization, and now all the 46 chromosomes will align in a straight line and with the help of the spindle apparatus, and they are ready to undergo cell division. Why should the zygote undergo cell division? Why should the zygote divide? Now, because are we single celled organisms? No, we are multicellular. So the zygote is just a single cell. It has to give rise to many cells in our body. So immediately the zygote has to undergo division, and this division of the zygote is referred to as cleavage. For that only all the chromosomes are getting aligned and a spindle apparatus is established. Is that clear? Okay.